Can't hear you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Namaste. You all know that I'm Hawa Diallo and that I am representing the United Nations Department of Global Communications. I've been working for the UN for about 33 years, and at this point I'm really privileged and honored to be managing a team of dynamic people that work in the civil society unit. This part of the department really focuses on interaction with civil society, with NGOs, with youth groups, with academic institutions, and with think tanks. I'm really honored to be here today. I've been telling people that I've worked around the region for many years, but for some reason I never made it to India. And finally, after maybe almost 1 year of talks with Madame, here I am. And it really is a privilege for me to be in a room filled with so many inspiring young people that are thinkers, action people, and implementers. I want to give a really special thank you to 1M1B as an esteemed NGO partner of the Department of Global Communications for inviting me to be here with you all. At the United Nations, which this year is celebrating 75 years of being created, there's a strong belief in the potential of young people. Their passion, their energy, and commitment to make a positive change is undeniable. I feel that energy and I feel that passion as I look around the room. I also see this passion and energy in the projects of 1M, 1B. And this is really a perfect example of the type of energy, progress, inspiration that the UN is trying to capture during this celebration of the 75 years. I highlight this because it's really important to me personally, but also the United Nations. I don't know if you're aware that the Secretary General of the UN just declared 2020 a decade for action. And the projects that I know I'm going to be visiting in the next couple of days here in India that are organized and developed by 1M, 1B, many of them that Youth of India is involved in, are doing exactly what the United Nations is calling for. After some years of work with 1M, 1B, I'm truly excited to be on this landscape, and I'm truly looking forward to meeting people on the ground, getting down to the grassroots level, and really looking forward to collaborating more with such an esteemed partner. So in the Civil Society Unit, which I head in New York, one of the major things we do is that we bring young representatives of civil society together. Not only to make sure that their voices are heard at the United Nations and across the globe, but also to make sure that their voice is powerful. This program of youth representatives that we manage has allowed over 600 young leaders to participate in a number of UN initiatives, ranging from forums, advocacy campaigns, and activities on UN-related topics such as the SDGs. It also gives the opportunity to take on leadership roles in a program that we call the Youth Steering Committee. This committee is made up of young people just like you that come together to advise the department on youth-related planning and activities. I think it's very easy to say that we work in youth, we believe in youth, and we do this with youth, but many times sitting at a desk, we're very far from the reality of what's happening on the ground. So our department has made an effort really to work for and work along with young people in having them advise us how to properly develop and implement activities that are needed by young people. Now, more specifically, in my department, we've made sure that young people are included in major conferences and summits. For example, there's one or two people in this room that participated in the Youth Climate Summit and the SG Summit that happened sometime in September. That's a concerted effort that my department has done to make sure that the youth voice is very heard. One of the major things we did during that summit is, along with young people, we created a full-day program of SDG action. All I had to do was to sit back and look pretty and rely on the passion and the energy of young people to put the program together. Of course, in my department, we push young people in the forefront, but we very much believe in intergenerational action and collaborating with them. For instance, again, the UN Civil Society conferences, which are organized by my department, have major leadership by young people and participation of young people as well. We have a UN Civil Society conference. The last one was held in Salt Lake City, Utah, in the United States. Anybody know where that is? No? I didn't know where it was either before I went there, so don't worry. But the United Nations made a specific effort to go to Salt Lake City because it's Middle America. And we were interested to change the narrative and to go to a place that is not automatically where you would find the UN. And we had young people at the forefront in that conference in helping us design what would take place. So we were very keen of bringing the global voice of young people from around the world to the domestic voice of people we found in Middle America. Now the young people really took charge. We had about 5,000 people that attended that conference, and over a third of the people who participated were young people between the ages of 18 and 32. And they put together a very strong program that attracted not just young people, but many others who were attending the conference. One of the major things that they did is that they consulted worldwide as much as they could, young people on creating a declaration that was focused on the theme of the conference, which was SDG 11. Anybody can shout out what SDG 11 is? SDG 11, any takers? You all have iPhones and Androids. You should be clicking right now. So SDG 11 focuses on sustainable cities and communities. So the young people decided to consult their peers around the world, and they created a declaration that included 25 pledges that young people felt they needed to put forth and make a commitment to focus on climate action. In addition to the Youth Declaration, they had a dedicated space for young people, which we call the Youth Hub, which had everything from a youth caucus to dedicated sessions on various SDGs to a dance-a-thon to a music festival. The hub was dedicated for young people, but it was open to anybody who was in the conference. As I mentioned before, we do believe in having an intergenerational connection. So I invite all of you to read the Youth Global Compact, which can be found on our website. And the idea is that we want to share this declaration as much as possible and to really work with young people to see how to activate and to implement these 25 commitments. In addition to the Civil Society Unit, the UN has various organs that are focused on supporting young people. At the start of the year, the UN launched, as I mentioned, a decade of action, where youth have been seen as essential to making efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Among these are the Secretary General's envoy, other organs that focus on youth are the Secretary General's envoy on youth, a very dynamic young lady, Jayapna, that comes from Sri Lanka, who is your voice at the United Nations. We also have one of our departments, which is called focuses on economic and social issues that has a very robust youth program, and they mostly are focusing on policy issues and making sure that member states are developing guidelines and policies that respect youth issues and youth concerns. I think another interesting forum at the UN that young people should be looking out for is the ECOSOC Youth Forum, which is a space that is dedicated for young people, and every year they have a specific theme in which they're focusing. And this is supposed to be a forum that is really taking up at the highest level the issues of young people. Now, the Secretary General I mentioned has an envoy who really has the task of working closely with member states to bring youth voices to intergovernmental negotiations and to UN processes. So the Secretary General has tasked her in conjunction with the UN system and youth themselves to lead a very robust strategy that is called the UN Youth Strategy Youth 2030. This strategy is something that aims to scale up global, regional, and national actions to meet young people's needs and to realize their rights and tap their possibilities as agents of change. As young leaders of the present and of tomorrow, youth, we believe, are informed, engaged with a global vision for the future. Do you agree?
Yes.
Let me hear you if you agree.
Yes.
I can't be the only one talking. Now, I mentioned that one of our departments focuses a lot on policy. I think something that you should really verse yourself in as well as the Youth 2030 is a very traditional document, which is called the UN World Program of Action of Youth, which really covers about 15 youth priority areas, and that really has been the blueprint in terms of the UN's work on youth issues. Now, today we're talking about youth and localizing the SDGs. I've mentioned the UN has quite a few programs in working with young people. Even at that, we all understand that the UN cannot do this alone, so that we rely a lot on various partners. And one of the crucial partners that has come with the UN as very necessary to get anything done is young people. So even as I mentioned these platforms, I myself as a UN person know that youth are at the forefront, and that you as a young person have a lot to contribute towards making change. Whether it's change in your own family life, change in your school, change in your community, or change in the world. So when I think about it, I have a couple of ideas what I think youth should be doing to localize the SDGs. But I'm going to throw it back to you. And here, you don't need your phone. I need you to stand up and shout out to me what you as a young person think you are doing to localize the SDGs. So be careful. Once I take off my glasses, it means I can really see you. And I can point out to you. So I'm looking around the room. I need something from somebody. What are you doing in your community to localize the SDGs? I see the gentleman right there with the glasses. I knew you were about to raise your hand.
we can spread education in our local areas through our participation. That's the fourth SDG goal of the SDG whole thing.
So tell me, what's your favorite SDG? Or what's one that you like?
For the quality
SDG?
education. 4.
Awesome. So because I believe in gender equality, I need a young lady to stand up and give me an example. Here comes my radar. I see the lady with the black and red jacket.
Ma'am, I would like gender equality, and that we're treated as equal not only in rituals, not only in the spaces but also in rituals. And the marriage that is now is gender biased till yet, it should be equalized.
Awesome. I'll take one more. Was somebody just waving at me, or they had an answer? One more from somebody. Now throw it up in the air. It could be a boy or a girl. If not, here comes the radar. I see the lady with the glasses in back of the gentleman who spoke. I was seeing if I had a chart of the SDG so you could cheat right there. In a nice way though.
So for me, equality would mean not only in terms, like ma'am said, not only in terms of ritual or marriage, but we see equality as being able to generate productivity in every manner. We have a project, we are from Sri Lanka College of Commerce. So we have a project named as Advocacy, where we empower women and develop women entrepreneurs. So that's where we help the community. We help women to generate women entrepreneurs.
Awesome. There are 2 SDGs that deal with women, gender, inequalities. Who knows any one of the two. One comes after SDG 4. SDG 5. And the one on inequalities is SDG 10. So give yourself a round of applause. Kind of help me with my speech. So I think those are all really great ideas, but then, I was thinking to myself too, localizing SDGs, because everything cannot be on the global level. I mean, I recently went to Sierra Leone in West Africa, where I come from, for about 6 weeks. And I went for a death in the family. And I must say that after the funeral had finished, I had time on my own to just be in Sierra Leone. And I had not been there in 10 years. And honestly, one thing I can say, I was really shocked by the reality of what I was seeing as an individual. And I was telling one of the youth here that I didn't have to go far. I saw it in my own family. Because my country is a country that's been plagued by civil war for many years. They had mudslides recently. They were plagued with Ebola. So I have not been to Sierra Leone in 10 years, and I felt when I was there that the country had gone back 20 years. And, I was asking myself, even as a UN person, what have I done to make things different in my own country? Because sometimes I believe when we work with large organizations, we're very much at the top. And we don't find ways to localize and bring things that we're doing to the grassroots level to really affect people and to make change. So, I had a lot of reflections, and when I was looking at this presentation today, some of the things that I came up, because I myself believe that youth is an anchor through which we can make viable change. I always believe that as a person, not even as a young person, but any individual, that you must stay informed and stay involved. And once you have that ammunition, you must take action at all levels. So for me, even as a UN worker, my understanding now is global level is good and it's necessary, but my work also needs to trickle down to the local level. So in a sense, I have to be global, or else there's no change. One of the things that I've always thought about, how do you bring the information of the UN to people, is thinking out of the box. You need to be passionate, and once you're passionate, you need to tell somebody about it. I have been privileged enough in the United Nations to travel to many places and a lot to engage with young people. In 2 recent trips I made to China and to Colombia, my heart was touched, because one of the things that I heard from young people is that they want to be close to the UN. They want to work with the UN, but they don't know how to do it. And I think that sometimes we're very traditional in the way that we do our work, that we leave out the most vulnerable populations, or the populations that we need to carry out our message. So remember to think out of the box, be passionate about what you're doing, and make sure you tell someone about the work that you're doing. One of the things I've learned also, being at the UN, and in getting things done, is that you have to go beyond no. That many times, when you come up with an idea, the first thing you hear is no. I have learned in the UN, when I hear no, I was telling my friends, Alicia, I take a couple of steps backwards, I think, and I charge. Because obviously there's something good there and something interesting that I need to come back, regroup, and present my ideas. So remember that no, as my new friend Salish was telling me, is a way for you to find new ideas. And I think, remember SDG 17. Any idea what SDG 17 has to do? It's the last SDG, the most important one. I think I understand what.
Partnerships.
Partnerships. Exactly. That you cannot do it alone. You have to work with other people. And you have to understand there's always enough pie for everybody. You have to learn how to work with people, how to collaborate, how to share ideas. When I learn, you learn. When I prosper, you prosper. There's always enough. It's important because, I'm going to leave here, I'm going to rely on 1A1B to get the work done, then I'm going to rely on somebody else in China or in Sierra Leone. The United Nations, it's not possible for us to get everything done. So partnership is very key, I think, in making things sustainable. Whether it's the UN, whether it's GTZ, whether it's your family, I think we as adults need to also actively listen to young people. Actively listen. Really block the noise and focus on what young people are saying. And we have to be able to provide support. And we have to ensure access to opportunities. The one thing I learned also when I was in Sierra Leone in October is that there's nothing very different for me, my children, and my family members I met in the village. The one difference is that my parents have given me an opportunity. I had access to education. I had access to travel. I've been exposed. So that has been the key. I could very easily have been in the village, married at a very early age, and have 4 or 5 children. And I think that is a determining factor in terms of what makes us progress. So in my small reflection, these are the ways that I see in a very personable way that both young people and people who support young people can actually actualize the youth concerns and the work that they do with the SDGs. Now lastly, one thing I mentioned to you is that it's the, how many years of the UN? Say it again? 75 years of the UN. October 24 is UN Day. And throughout the year, the UN is going to be actualizing a campaign. I want you to promise me something. Are you going to promise me something?
Yes.
Even before I tell you what it is? I want you to be able to go to the UN website and look for the UN 75 survey. I can even write it down to you before you leave today. The Secretary General of the UN, anybody know what that man is called? What's his name again? Antonio Guterres. He has launched a campaign to commemorate 75 years of the UN. But we want to have your say. We want to have your feedback. It's the biggest global conversation ever on the role of global communication in building the future we want. So I want all of us to go to that website, take that survey. It takes 1 minute. And your feedback is something that is very important because those responses in that survey are going to help the UN to improve its management of the achievement of the SDGs and to really put us in a better position to meet those aspirations for a brighter global future in 2045. If you agree with me, let me hear you. So I really want to leave letting you know the United Nations is closer to you than you believe. I want you to know that the UN is a place for you to voice your concerns and voice your ideas as well. Now, we have a UN office here in New Delhi, and I want to be able to make those connections with you. And I think it's not only my department that has an office here, many UN offices. And I think I want to take that responsibility to see how we can forge some relationships, probably having 1M, 1B as an anchor, so that we form some type of collaboration in India. With that said, I really want to thank you for inviting me. I'm really honored to be here. I'm so psyched to be going tomorrow to visit the project. And I hope, this is my first time, but I hope it's not my last.
Thank you so much for that address, ma'am. As a member of the Youth of India, I want to bring to your notice that the most answered question whenever somebody asks us that what do you want to do in the future, in all of my political science classes, most of the people stand up and say we want to work with the UN. So listening to you talk about how you want to connect the youth more with the UN was like music to us. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, I would like to request Ms.